A mental health disorder may be a part of who we are, but it is never all that we are. Sometimes you just need a hug. No words of advice, no outpouring of empathy. Just a hug. Be kind, be compassionate, and be good to one another.
Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Get Real About Mental Health, and I'm your host, Mama Deb. So welcome back to the show since I took Halloween off. I'm sorry if you could hear the ruckus in the background. My dog has decided that a spider apparently is going to end his life and he has to take it out right now. November 7th is a blustery day here in Oregon. We are supposed to get down to the mid to or low 30s tonight. So I'm freezing. It is so cold down here in the garage, got to tell you. So tonight, I hope y'all are doing well. I hope everybody's having a good day. And if you're not having a good day, I hope that we can help you have a good day by doing some talking and some sharing about things that we have going on in our lives. Tonight, the topic is personality disorders. Now, there are 10 different types of personality disorders, and they are brought up into different sections so that we can actually break them down and discuss what they're like. So Ox, I'm so jealous that it's 65 at the beach in the East Coast. And Purple, I'm sorry you're still sick, but I hope you're on the mend. And I'm glad you're hanging in there with us. So what exactly is a personality disorder? That's something we need to talk about, is that it is an unhealthy and inflexible way of thinking or patterns of behavior that come in and conflict and have negative side effects on everyday life. So that's pretty much every mental health disorder. These guys are just to an extreme, a very large extreme when it comes to some of them. So it is estimated, and again, this is just an estimate, that 9.1% of adults in the United States have a personality disorder, which means roughly 15 million people worldwide suffer from a personality disorder. 15 million. Okay, a large amount of those are non-diagnosed. So when we're talking about looking for signs and symptoms in things with your personality disorder, the first thing you have to remember is like these types of symptoms and stuff, these types of disorders start to show themselves at puberty, and so around 13 to 15 is when you're going to start seeing these signs and symptoms, and then they probably are fully to their worst, I guess, to how bad it's going to get in young adulthood. So in the time of our lives when we are not sure of ourselves, going through all these huge physical body changes, we're also undergoing huge mental health changes. And that can make these disorders really hard to detect, given that most teenagers are not the happiest people on the earth. They have an attitude problem. They are selfish, and they just have normal teenage angst. So it's really hard as parents to see this stuff coming along. But when we're talking about what causes it, they have found, this is actually pretty new research. It's really in its infancy, just like the research I was talking about last week or 2 weeks ago with mushrooms. This, again, they have possibly found a genetic link to what happens is there's a mutation on the serotonin transport gene, and it's called the SERT gene. And it's found that this mutation is possibly responsible for for the start of personality disorders, and especially things like OCD. So why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because if they can trace a genetic marker for something like OCD or personality disorders, it also means that there's a possibility they will find a genetic marker for depression and anxiety. And in the end, that means that A, we can get better treatment. B, we might be able to completely eradicate it when we realize it, that there's a mutation in the gene by taking proper medications. I mean, that would be so amazing. So what are the common factors? What happens in your life to give you a personality disorder? Like I said, there is some genetic factors, but the commonality that I see in my research and everything like that, and that I found, is that they call it a chaotic lifestyle or childhood. And what they mean by chaotic is there's usually some form of abuse. And the abuse can be such things as the parent yelling and screaming all the times, or parents fighting, parents blaming children for things that aren't their faults, such as saying, if you hadn't behaved this way, Dad, if you don't stop acting this way, I'm going to give you away. I don't love you anymore because of the way that you're acting. So really holding their love and their affection, holding it back from a child as a punishment, is a form of verbal and emotional abuse. And it is found that children who have that type of a chaotic lifestyle are 3 times more likely to have borderline personality disorders, as well as narcissism, OCD, and some paranoid personality disorders. So 3 times more likely. And then when we start talking about the other chaoses that can be in a child's life, it's called a high reactivity. And what that is you have a very noisy, bright childhood, completely overwhelmed with stimuli all the time, loud music, bright lights, yelling, screaming, flashing lights, that kind of stuff. This actually will lead to developing more of our anxiety-based disorders, okay? There's a couple of in cluster C, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's a couple, those are the personality disorders we're talking about. They make them very shy and inward, indrawn. We would call them, an invert, because it's so much chaos going around them in their childhood. Just the only way that they knew how to protect themselves. Unfortunately, also the other type of what they call chaos in a childhood is sexual abuse. And the collective longitudinal personality disorder study showed us that, I hate saying the statistics because it's so just awful to imagine a child going through it, but it is found that if a child has had habitual long-term sexual abuse by 1 or more predators, that there is a chance of almost 50% that they're going to develop some form of a personality disorder. And a lot of that starts with the fact that they start to disassociate, because I don't know about you guys, but if I was in that position, I'd learn how to disassociate real freaking fast if I had a choice, because you don't want to be there. You don't want to experience the pain. You know what's going on, but your mind is taking you somewhere else to protect you. And it is when that disassociation starts that we start to have like changes in the person's personality and changes in the way that they deal with things. And that begins to be a development of personality disorder. So like I remember when I was a kid, my uncle would always say that his youngest child was born without a personality. Yeah, okay, that still to this day confuses me. How the hell are you born without a personality? That's something you develop. You may have some markers for certain things, but you develop your personality. And when I was doing the research for this, I found that my cousin absolutely 100% has a personality disorder. Not that she doesn't have a personality, she has a personality disorder. And I can understand it given the history and all that I know about her lifestyle. She definitely falls into the abuse category. And it's no wonder that she has turned out the way that she has turned out. So let's take a look at the different types of personality disorders. So we're going to put them in 3 clusters. Okay. Cluster A is considered your paranoid group. They have, I just lost my place. I'm sorry, you guys. So the first personality is called paranoid. Is what we're going to go over first. Paranoid personality disorder presents itself as you're very suspicious, you distance yourself. You try to justify by any means necessary any harm or deceit that has gone on your part. They're very hesitant to confide in other people. They are very much the one-on-one. They like to be alone. They're very sensitive to any type of criticism or remarks. They feel that they are aimed personally at them, even if it's just a general comment to a general conversation. They take it very personal. They are very quick to anger, and they have huge grudge holding ability. They will hold a grudge until they're like 90 and something happened when they're 15. The next one is called the schizoid personality. And these ones are people who have lack of interest in any type of social gathering. They do not like personal relationships, and they really prefer to be alone. They have a limited range of emotion and expression. They have the inability to take any type of pleasure in anything, just about. They don't pick up on social cues, and they appear to be very cold and indifferent, and have very little interest, if any, in adult relationships as far as sexual intercourse and stuff like that. Now, schizotypical, they are very interested in the fact that they have a very distinct and peculiar way of dressing, a way of speaking, and a way of their beliefs and thinking all fall within this very peculiar way of doing things. And it is completely normal for them. That is what they see as the way that you should do things. Lost my place again. I'm fired. Sorry. So they're also, the schizotypical are also very dependent. That is not the right page. I'm sorry, you guys. Anyway, so I found it again. So they are particular in their way of belief and talking. They miss social cues a lot. They feel like when you are coming into a situation and somebody's talking, they perceive that they are probably, if somebody looks at them as they're talking in the group, they now perceive that group is talking about them and making judgments about them. So that's cluster A. And I found in cluster A, a lot of things that really start pointing towards a lot of commonality in symptoms with autism or Asperger's. The inability to express themselves, the peculiar way of doing things, the inability to pick up on social cues, and they appear to be cold and indifferent, but they just don't understand exactly what's going on. That reminds me a lot of what maybe an autistic child or an adult would be going through. So now in cluster B, it is called the dramatic and overly emotional and unpredictable. Okay, that is our cluster B. Our cluster B consists of antisocial personality disorder, which is they will present with a lot of lying, stealing, cheating, you name it, they'll try to do it. They have problems with the law, reoccurring problems with the law because of their behavior because they don't see anything wrong with the lying and the stealing. They have very aggressive behavior, very, very impulsive. And this is also what feeds into the trouble with the law because they don't think things out. They just go immediately. And it's something that if you thought about and maybe thought it would figure out it's not a good idea. For these people, they don't do that. They have an absolute lack of remorse. They do not understand, nor do they care to understand or are capable of understanding why what they did is harmful to another person. They are incredibly irresponsible. It's always somebody else's fault. Somebody was out to get them. It wasn't their fault that, the money just accidentally fell out of some guy's wallet when I bumped into him. That's not my fault. The money fell into my pocket. And that's the way that their thought processes are. So on borderline personality disorder, you're going to find that they are very, yes, it does. Some of it does sound an awful lot like autism, Purple. Borderline personality disorder, you'll find that they're also very impulsive. Okay, the difference here is that they have an incredibly fragile self-esteem or self-image. They will hardly ever be satisfied with the way that they look and will just most likely go, okay, well, whatever, I'm just going to go. But they know inside that they're like, I don't look my best and I shouldn't have come out like this. And it's a lot of mental beat down from yourself. They have erratic mood swings up and down. They have an intense fear of being alone. Emptiness and paranoia comes and goes depending on the mood they're in. The thing with borderline personality disorder, they're going to find that there are a lot of abandonment issues, and they're possibly linking this to children who were not picked up or held enough as babies because they failed to make that foundation or that bonding with their parents, and therefore they don't have a way to form a sense of self that is strong. Because you guys all know that, when you have parents that hold you and love you and, tell you what a pretty baby you are and all of that and talk to you, and through the first few months, first years of your life, it really does gives you a good foundation for what you're going to be in life and how your personality is going to be in life. And with borderline personality disorder, it's a lot of times of abandonment is where a lot of this will come from. And that can also come from, the verbal abuse that we talked about. Now, histrionic, I have a hardest time with this one, I'm sorry. Histrionic, borderline personality disorder. These guys are attention seekers. They will go out of their way to do whatever they need to do to gain attention. They will be strong in their opinions, but have little or no fact to back them up. They're what my parents' generation would have called a blowhard. Talking about this, talking about that, oh, this, that, and the other, and this, that, and I know that. But then when somebody challenges them, they don't have the knowledge or the facts to back up what those opinions are. They're easily swayed by others. If somebody does have the facts and somebody does have the same belief system, they will adopt those facts from that person and go with their argument. They are excessively concerned with their physical appearance. They don't know when enough is enough. Like, kind of like it reminds me of those people that get plastic surgery after plastic surgery after plastic surgery, and they aren't ever satisfied with the way they look. This is a lot of what the histrionic personality disorder, that's the kind of behavior you'll see. And they think that they don't think that relationships with another person is worth the effort because it's hard for them to even understand why they would want to have that. With this one, you're going to see that in this group, there's a reason why we call it the cluster B. You're going to start seeing that we're headed towards the big one here, which is narcissism. And narcissism is no joke, y'all. I'm sure you all have had run-ins with somebody who's a narcissist, and it's not pretty, it's not fun, and they're not nice people at all. They have by any means necessary, they will draw attention to themselves. They will blow up their accomplishments and seek, what was the word I wanted? They will seek group approval. And it will also be they will step on anybody and everybody trying to get their way to what they need to, what they want to accomplish. They will also, they have absolutely no sense of remorse. They will twist the truth to make you seem like you're the aggressor. I think the best definition I've heard of narcissistic personality disorder is that they keep nagging you and keep at you and just keep at you and keep at you and keep at you until they have twisted you to the point where you're like, I'm upset with you about it and I'm losing my cool. And then they turn it around and make you into the villain and them into the victim so that they can get more attention for having to put up with your blow up. And that's, narcissists are some of the hardest people in the world to live with. Now, with narcissistic personality disorder, along with these other ones in cluster B, it comes from a lot of abandonment, a lot of being ignored, no positive reinforcement, especially narcissism. When you develop a narcissistic personality disorder, you're going to find that the person did not get praise at home, did not get told this is good, that is good. They had to act out as in a bad way in order to get any type of recognition from their parents. And that twisted their way of thinking. So that's why they manipulate anybody and everybody around them, because that's the only way they know how to get attention. And they don't see anything wrong with it. They do not understand when somebody comes out and says, what you're doing is wrong. They don't understand it. They have no concept of why what they're doing would be wrong. Okay, and cluster C, those are our dependents. Our let's see here. I think we have two here. So in cluster C, we have avoidance, dependence, obsession, and obsessive compulsive. With avoidance personality disorder is people who avoid anything and everything to do with any type of relationship outside of their own. They like to be alone because that's something that they can adapt. They can handle being alone. They're very sensitive to criticism and rejection. They feel inadequate, inferior, and unattractive. They avoid any type of work or personal relationship because all it will do is bring them hardship into their life because they're going to feel like they're going to be judged. They are socially very timid, and they isolate themselves a lot. And they will make any type of plan or play that they can to avoid going into a new setting, like a new job, a new set of friends, anything like that. It is not something that they're going to want to do. They're extremely shy, and they have a disproportionate fear of disappointment and embarrassment. They will go out of their way and not say anything and hide in the back so that they don't get pulled out into the crowd or in the center, or somebody will. So if somebody sees them trip or sneeze wrong, they won't be embarrassed by somebody criticizing them. That type of personality disorder, that comes from the overcritical verbal abuse. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Do you have to breathe so loud? Couldn't you possibly clean your glasses? I mean, really, wipe them off. Your hair looks like you mixed it with a, what do you call it? You mixed it with a cake mixer, go brush your hair. Your breath stinks. You're ugly. That outfit doesn't look good on you. You need to lose some weight. So you see where I'm coming from, why that would have that type of a effect on a person, because if they're being constantly criticized, they're going to avoid going anywhere near people because they don't want to feel those feelings again. And it makes sense. So the second one on cluster C is dependent. And I got to say, this is one that I check a few of these boxes, made me a little uncomfortable. So dependents have an excessive dependence on others' feelings about them. They make you, they actually will hook their day's feelings, or won't decide, will be like kind of blah. And then when they interact with their significant other or what have you, the significant other's feelings will dictate what their feelings are for the day, if that makes sense. They need to be taken care of. They're very submissive. It's one of those things where I've seen couples, they're faced with the situation and one partner turns to the other one and says, well, what do we think about this? It wasn't like that one person was going to form an opinion until his or her partner spoke, and that whatever that opinion was, that was the one they were both going to have. They have a complete lack of self-confidence. They don't know which way to turn and won't do so unless they're directed by their partner or, like a parent or something like that. They have a fear of having to provide for themselves because they, honest to God, do not believe that they are capable of caring for themselves or taking care of anybody unless they have somebody with them. They have they have difficulty disagreeing with anybody in their life. This is where you'll see a lot of your people pleasers. Maybe not to this extent, but that's where that mentality, that thought process comes from. If you avoid any type of disagreeing, you will definitely be able to everybody will be happy. You won't have to involve yourself in a conflict, which is hard. I'm not particularly fond of conflicts either, but I won't, take somebody else's opinion on anymore. It's not something I can do anymore. They tolerate poor or abusive behavior because they believe that is the best they're ever going to get. And they have an urgent need to start a new relationship right after another one ends. So it's not like they take a whole lot of time in between relationships. They usually go from one long-term relationship to another, and without stopping to breathe and grow and maybe better themselves and see what they could do. So this dependent type of personality is honestly, it comes from the helicopter parent. And this is the research that I found. So it's not me. There's some research here that I quoted earlier where it came from. This type of personality disorder comes from people not allowing other people to learn for themselves, learn that they're going to make mistakes, and having to learn how to make mistakes and how to recover from it. Overprotective parents who, for example, won't let them go to the park and play because they're afraid there is too much bacteria in the dirt. Well, that child won't ever learn how to socialize with other children, how to act accordingly, how to take turns, how to wait for your turns and not like push somebody out of the way and say, hey, I'm taking this before anybody else is. It also makes them, not like I said, it makes it really hard for them to form relationships later in life because they don't have the skills. They weren't given a chance to have the skills or make the skills in life when they were younger, which is what they should have done. So I'm sure you can see where that comes from. Now, OCD. This one, I know quite a few people who have OCD, some to an extreme, like what we're talking about here. Most people I know have a much milder version of it. So what I'm talking about here is not the milder versions. I'm talking about the extreme versions of OCD. Okay. So extreme that it absolutely occupies your life. It makes you live your life in a certain way. And it makes other people treat you in a certain way because of the OCD. So the first thing that you'll find is that they have a huge preoccupation with details, rules, and organization. Okay. Now that organization one goes one of two ways. They either completely disregard organization and just hoard everything, or they're so particular about their organization, they can only have maybe an odd number of things, or maybe it's an even number of things or something like that. That's an extreme when things like that, when I'm talking about the organization and the rule following. They are extreme perfectionists. With the perfectionism is so bad that it results in dysfunction in their life. And the thought process behind that is that they won't try something unless they're absolutely certain that it's going to go exactly how it's supposed to go according to the rules. You do step A and then B, then C, and now you have D. If it's not going to go that way, they become very frustrated, very angry, and they will quit the project. They won't give it a second chance to go back and see if I actually did A, B, and C right, because they feel like they've read the rules. This is the way it's supposed to go. And that's just the way it's still, that's the way it's supposed to be. You follow the rules. As we all know, life is not like that. So it makes it difficult for them to actually function outside of their little box there in their home. They have an inability to disregard worthless things or trash. That's why I was talking about the organization. It either goes one way or the other. They are rigid and stubborn in their belief system, in that theirs is right, yours is wrong. This is my stuff. It's not trash. You can't come in my home because it's my home, and you can't throw away my stuff because it's my stuff. They're inflexible about morals. If they feel like this is the right path and this is the way to do it, they can either go from one extreme to another. They can either be like, say, with sexual relations, I'm completely abstinent. I don't believe in it. Not until I'm married. And then you can do, or you can go to the other side. Well, I'm an adult. I enjoy sex. I know the rules. I'm going to have as much sex as possible. But either way, you're not going to change their mind. They are going to be very rigid in their thought process. And they are incredibly tight with money. Incredibly tight. They may live in a box, but they'll have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. That's an example, of course. But they do not like to spend their money. They will find any way possible to not spend their money. And that's where you get the hoarding and stuff coming in, because they're like, I can redo this and I can make this look like this. And I can do this and that and the other. And it's not it's not something that's really realistic, but to them it's doable because that's their mind frame. So from the OCD, you're going to find that came from a lot of, crap, I just kicked my heater. That comes from a lot of overstimulation as a child. Things being incredibly, chaotic. Just go, never knowing one way or another, not knowing, like, for example, who's picking you up from school, who's taking you to school. Let's just, blah, blah, blah. A lot of parents who are very spontaneous and on the fly, they will have a, all right, off you go do that. They will tend to have this OCD when it's very chaotic in their life. The research that I was reading is like a lot of parents who are drug users or alcoholics, and the kids have to take on a higher role when they're younger, like a more parental role or what have you. They have a tendency to develop OCD because they work really hard for everything. They find that they've had to work extra hard to get what they wanted because they didn't have a parent providing for them. So they will become OCD to make sure that they stay the way they are. The things in their life will stay theirs. They won't have to worry about somebody taking it away from them. So when we're talking about these personality disorders, I think you guys are all going to see when I say that there is that definitely you can see the reason for these things occurring and the different kinds of abuse and chaotic lifestyles that have to develop or that are present in order for these to develop. And I can only imagine how hard it is. And the other statistic that's very interesting is that 67% of people who have some form of a personality disorder are 67% of us are likely to have a coexisting mental health problem. So, for example, those of us who have OCD, okay, I'm going to say you probably have some anxiety as well, because OCD does cause a lot of anxiety when things are not the way that you want or need them to be. People who have the paranoia and, some of the borderline personality disorders, I can also see them having a lot of depression because the issues that they're dealing with they're sad, they're depressing. I mean, if you think everybody's out to get you all the time, how could you not be depressed? How could you not look on the world like that? I'm sorry, Purple. Feel like I'm calling you out here. But I think the thing is also you have to remember, when we're talking about the personality disorders, not every person is going to check every single box. Not every person is going to have every single symptom. What mostly happens is that they have a whole lot of symptoms and they check a whole lot of boxes, and then the doctors have to narrow it down to which one they're leaning more towards. And that is why you have to go see your psychiatrist and your therapist, because talking to them can really make a difference, in how they diagnose you. Okay. Now I totally forgot where I was going with this. Sorry, you guys, my brain's on like stall tonight. I apologize. So like when we're talking about the personality disorders and the development of these disorders, and like I said, it comes at puberty and into young adulthood is where we're going to see them. So like 15 is the most common age when you're going to see not only these personality disorders, but you're going to see things like bipolar disorders. You're going to see depression, anxiety, all of that. All of it tends to manifest at puberty. And that's something that I find very interesting, because when we talk about how big the changes are physically in the body for during that time, we have to really also stop and think about how hard it must be. It must be mentally. Because not only are you changing, you're physically changing, you're changing into a woman or a man, but now you're having all these self-doubts and, wow, my chest isn't as big as my sister's. And, well, that makes me inadequate. And, I feel alone because nobody else my age is developing like this. Why am I doing this so late? What's up with all these guys that I used to hang out with were just my buddies and my friends, and now they're all giving me all this unwanted sexual attention. They don't know how to handle it. And the thing is that all that change and what it comes down to as parents, I believe, this is just Mama Deb's belief system, I believe that we actually have to be more aware as parents of that part of adolescence, because you shouldn't have to be like some people here, like Purple. She says she wasn't diagnosed until she was in her 30s and 40s. Diagnosed correctly, let me put that right. And that is because so many symptoms overlapped. And there's also the fact that she might not have been, I can't say wasn't because I don't know her story, but she might not have been given the support she needed mentally. As far as, because she's a little older than I am. Back in the day, that wasn't something that you talked about. Everybody just, just happens, you're smiling. You can't be unhappy. So it's just all right, Mark, you're right. Don't be glad. Okay. But you know what I'm talking about. That was nice, by the way. That and the ice cream comment, you guys, come on now. I think it's important that we do spend a little bit more time educating our children on how serious mental health disorders can come about, and how it is important that we not neglect that aspect of our children's growth, because it's hard enough. Like I said, you guys all know, y'all been there. You know how hard it was. You feel like an idiot. You feel like you're not. Oh, yes, Purple. That's a policy my family has as well. If we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. Yep, that's why a lot of that's why a lot of my family also doesn't watch my show or talk about my show, because it calls out the fact that mental health diagnoses and help were ignored in my family. Nobody really went about how to correct it. So the other thing that we need to like touch on, I feel I need to touch on, is you guys, most of these personality disorders come from some form of abuse or another. And if you see it, I'm not a person who puts myself into other people's lives if I'm not asked. But if it's obvious abuse, it's to the point where, you have to take on that policy. If you see something, you have to say something. Because the damage that is done to a young mind when that kind of abuse happens is permanent. The permanent scarring is there. It's not like you can just say, oh, well, it just happened that one time. Because most of the time we all know that's a big fat lie. And you're going to see also that these parents that are being this way probably have a personality disorder also, because there is a genetic link. They are seeing that some of these disorders run in families. Now that raises the question, is it really that it runs in the family, or is it a cycle of abuse that is running in the family, and these personality disorders are a result of that cycle of abuse? And I think that's the main thing that, Purple, it's still here stigma today, just not anywhere near what it held back in the 70s when you were growing up. But what do you guys think? I mean, what is your take on that it's a personality disorder runs in the family, or is it really just a cycle of abuse? I'm wondering what you guys think, and what you would suggest people do. Do you prescribe to the, if you see it, say something? What do you think? Type faster, y'all. So while I'm waiting for you guys to say something about that, I also think that we need to touch on the fact that these personality disorders, especially like narcissism and avoidance, and quite a few of the other ones, are you can see that they all have a very much a violent part of them. So these things, one of the reasons why I say it's so important to say something if you see something, is that these are the young people that do things, unmentionable things like school shootings, killing other people. They're the kids that get, some of these kids are going to be so self-isolated that they get bullied on, and then they turn into the shooters. So I think it's really important that we let people know any abnormalities that we see. Okay, so let's see. Mark says children tend to imitate their role models and rebel and then go the opposite way. That's entirely possible. That is absolutely entirely possible, that they do rebel and go the other way. However, I also see it that if they know no other way, Mark, they're not going to rebel from it, because that's the only thing that they know. They might say they might hate it. They might absolutely hate it. But when it comes to, say, like an anger issue or something like that, if they're put into a situation where they are the person who's the aggressor now, they're going to react similar to what they've been taught is appropriate in the home. So that's concerning. I mean, that lends to the cycle of abuse. Let's see, they are intertwined. If the parent has yes. Exactly. Purple, you're absolutely right. I think it is intertwined, because if there is an undiagnosed personality disorder, then we're definitely going to see the child won't have a normal life. I'm sure most of you, at least the group that's around my age, have seen that movie Sybil. That is absolutely the best example of when someone who has a mental health disorder raises a child, and then it becomes it was such a horrid upbringing. She ended up having multiple personalities. Let's see, of the 2 Parkland shootings in Florida a few years ago, committed suicide over the mental trauma. Absolutely. Oh, it absolutely is true. They, a lot of the, I don't know, it was in Florida, but it might've been, I don't remember where this one was at, but he had high functioning autism along with some personality disorders, and he was a shooter. And I can't remember where it's at, but it was quite a few years ago. I think I was in my 20s. So yeah, I can see that absolutely. I can see people who are involved in these shootings never being the same again, whether they were shot or not, because that fear has installed in them, and it becomes like a PTSD. So because PTSD is a bitch. Those of you who have it understand what I'm saying. It is rears its ugly head over at most inopportune times. Or Goldie. Oh, okay. Sorry, Mark. Take their role models or Bella Goldie. Oops. Read that one wrong. Sorry about that. I think alcohol can be a contributing factor, yes. But I also think that if we're talking about PTSD, there are some people and some orders of PTSD that are just so bad that even on medication, they still have issues. And yeah, alcohol can be a contributing factor, but can also, and I know I'm going to say an unpopular opinion, but if you're in moderation and you don't get drunk and out of control, the alcohol can ease the anxiety. And that is a fact. It may not be a popular opinion, but it absolutely is a fact. I think the important thing is to remember to do with everything is moderation. You don't want to go overboard or anything like that. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mark. And that's a good point. Uncle Beck, you and I have talked about this a lot, about our PTSD and how we react to things. And Beck doesn't drink. I do drink. I tend to not drink a whole lot, but I've been known to tie one on every now and again. But the thing is like, even when I'm not drinking, the nightmares still come. I'm still medicated. I'm still absolutely still medicated. So I don't know that it would make a difference, alcohol or not. Yes. Yes, no, absolutely. On many reservations, alcoholism is huge on reservations, and it has when you drink that much, it has such a depressive side effect that it does. It absolutely drives them to suicide, to other things. I mean, crazy. Yes, because they feel like they can't get out of there. They feel like they can't do anything outside the reservation, and it is a very hard cycle to break. I think we've seen some successes, and people are like now moving on and doing better for themselves, but it is a complete cycle. And that happens with a lot of people who come from, unfortunately, disadvantaged circumstances. You either rise up or you kind of just stay there. And I don't know how to tell anybody how to do one way or the other, because I came from a very poor family. And I chose not to be that way. I chose to end the cycle of abuse with my kids. And I chose not to have a lot to do with the negative parts of my family. Yes, Purple, more than half of my family are alcoholics also. And I think that's another thing. Alcoholism does run in families. That's been proven. It can. Yes, absolutely, Ox. It absolutely can enhance your mental health problems. Again, that's why I say it is better to do everything in moderation. Because if you do everything in moderation, then you are going to get at least for me with alcohol, you get the little bit of relief. And then I smoke a little pot as well. I'm sure I'm not supposed to say that on live streams, but I won't say it again. But that takes the edge off and my anxiety is calm, so I can actually relax and not have to be on edge all the time, wondering when the next shoe is going to drop. Because that's something my PTSD does for me, is that I'm always anxious about what's going to happen next and how it's going to go wrong, and how I take on the whole thought of how am I going to fuck up my happy after all. You know what I mean? That's just me though. And so I think that's can you put that up for me, Beck? Breaking an addiction depends on wanting to break the addiction. The addict needs to find a reason to want to do or not to do whatever. Oh, absolutely, 100%, Mark. Nobody can make an addict not be an addict. No one can. And in fact, even when you're sober, you're still an addict because you still have that. You'll always have that desire. You can give them, talks to them blue in the face. You can throw hard facts at them. You can throw money facts at them. And if they are not ready to change, they're not going to change. That's just a fact with any type of addict. And you can bang your head up against a lot of walls for that one. And it's not easy to do because when you love someone who's an addict, then you have to themselves and ultimately take a step back and let them, make up their own minds. Oh, the coping mechanisms are so much fun. Hey, Ben. Yeah. So, Jason, tell me about your coping mechanisms because mine are some humdingers. I do this stupid thing, you guys. It's very little, okay? But you're gonna laugh. I wring my hands like this, and I twist my fingers, and that's how my husband knows that I'm starting to get really anxious. And then I'll start doing this, and I'll tap back and forth, and he's like, "Okay, we're leaving now," because you build houses. That's your coping mechanism. I like that. That is an absolutely industrious coping mechanism. I do what I do here. It's a coping mechanism for me because it helps me be able to address my needs, and publicly say this is what's going on with me. But it also addresses my need to help people, and that's my love language, is helping and taking care of people. So this helps me do that, hammering lots and lots of nails. Yeah, that I can see why that would work. I can see why that would make you feel better. Because I'm imagining it right now, pounding nails into a board, or boards, and really not feeling very angry or anxious after that. Just being able to get rid of it. That's always nice. In my younger days when I was still able to do a lot more activities, things, I used to kickbox a lot, and that helped me a ton because I was allowed to be angry at the bag because the bag wasn't going to hit me back. You know what I mean? Yes, actually it does. It does, Purple, because you're avoiding it because it causes you anxiety. Now, is it a productive coping mechanism? No, not really, because it's actually just doing the opposite of what you want it to do. It's making you more introverted. I know you're not a very outgoing person. I mean, you're a sweet and lovely person, but you don't like talking to a lot of people. Your compromise to that is you get online and you chat, which is always good. That's a way to cope. That's a way to cope with social anxieties very well, actually. You play the bass guitar. Ooh, interesting. See, I love guitars. I just never understood how to play them. It's not gonna. I can't get my fingers to do what my fingers don't mind my mind, so I can't do it. But that's actually really good. Oh, okay. That's really relaxing too. Yeah, I had for a very long time, I had a really bad fear of guns because of my brother's death. He was shot and killed. So I had a very big fear of it. And I went out on the range one day, bawling my eyes out every time I pulled the trigger. And the guy standing next to me is like, God damn, she can't even see. She's crying so bad, but she's shooting it like center mass every time. And I let go of a lot of grief that day. That was amazing. So I agree with you. That is absolutely an amazing thing to do. I like the idea of keeping your hands and mind occupied. For me, like I'll cook. But like you get comfort foods. If I'm sad, you're getting, the thick macaroni and cheese and cornbread and all that and chili, the thick stuff that's just comfort food. Absolutely. Well said, Ox. I'm absolutely 100% on board with that. A gun can't do anything, but a gun in a human hand can do a whole lot. You say box of shells. Yes, some good stuff though. That shell pasta is good. No, and I think that back to what Kira said is that keep your hands and mind busy. It's like I do art. I am, and I'm not actually I'm not like a great artist. I do a lot of abstract art, and I love it because it keeps me busy, keeps my mind. If I'm anxious and having a bad day, of course, I'll turn out a darker painting or a darker sculpture. It just depends on what my mood is. But it lets me get my mind out on paper, and it makes it a whole lot easier. Like I said, in cooking is good too. Like, if I'm feeling really happy and peppy and really good to go, you might get steak and salad from me, but it's not going to be anything, real heavy. And right, you need to respect the damage a tool can do, but you cannot fear your own tools. Absolutely. I agree with both you guys on that one. Because you can't, again, you can use the comparison, I guess, of, like a car is a tool. A car is dangerous, but a car doesn't drive itself. Well, not yet anyway, drive itself intoxicated. You have to put a human into that equation in order for that to happen. And it doesn't mean that we should fear cars. We should fear the humans that get in the cars that are drunk. That's what we should be fearing. I don't need to get my nice, Mark. Well, I guess that'll take your mind off your problems now, won't it? That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I wasn't expecting that. Well, all right, my sweets, we are just about at the hour mark. I would like to encourage all of you to get over to Twitch and jump in and listen to my friend OA. She should be going on here in about 3 or 4 minutes. It's Overprotective Atheist. And she is on Twitch, and I'm not sure exactly what she's talking about tonight. I'm sorry I didn't take the time to look that up. But I really enjoyed you guys coming. Thank you for always supporting me, and thank you for the feedback in the chats. I really appreciate that a whole lot. And remember, if you have something you want to talk about, you have something that you want to say, absolutely 100%, leave it in my comments. You can get a hold of me, or you can get a hold of my producer, Beck, and we will definitely... we'll definitely try to put together a show about it. So I really appreciate it, you all. Again, I have to say big shout out to my producer, Beck. He is back, and my shows always run 150 times smoother when he is around. So I appreciate everything you do, my dear. And I have to thank him specifically for the intro. I think it turned out beautifully. So on that note, I am going to let you all go. Just remember, you're perfect the way you are, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
A mental health disorder may be a part of who we are, but it is never all that we are. Sometimes you just need a hug. No words of advice, no outpouring of empathy. Just a hug. Be kind, be compassionate, and be good to one another.